Cars has interesting villains, but in this Cars world, even the good guys aren't spared from committing crimes. Today I'll tell you which Cars characters have committed crimes, and how much they should pay. Let's start with the one everyone needed to see, the Ka-Chow, Lightning McQueen. It's no wonder he commits some crimes in the movies, but if you look very closely, he wasn't at all good. He was an arrogant, selfish, and very materialistic racer. In other words, he wasn't humble at all. His first big crime happened when we met him. Well, in the first race he's competing, Lightning decides it's a good idea not to change his tires, even though his team was recommending him to do so.
No tires, just gas! You need tires, you idiot!
And this counts as a crime of negligence, since his tires are destroyed. And in a race with cars at high speeds, this is very dangerous. He endangered his life and the lives of his opponents, something that could easily have been avoided. And for this crime, we'll fine him $10,000. Speaking of his rivals, already for Cars 3, we see Lightning's relationship with the other competitors. They all get along pretty heavy, but Lightning together with Luigi make a pretty heavy joke. And the victim is Carl Weathers, the one who has the sponsorship of Dinoco, because the two very unhinged inflate his tires, making it impossible for him to move, and that I consider it as a crime of assault and battery, since the tires are extremities of the cars, like your hands or legs. And for committing this crime, McQueen gets 2 years in jail and a fine of $500. Lightning is a race car. Yes, we all understand that, but there's no justification for him to want to stress it at all times. You'll almost always see him driving recklessly, ignoring the speed limit, either on the highway or in some forest, and that is definitely a crime, for which he'll have to pay a $5,000 fine. Besides, many times we have seen him entering where he shouldn't. This happened at the Cars 3 rally, at the abandoned Smoky track, or even in some buildings in Radiator Springs, like when he had to see the sheriff's entire rear end.
Hey, have you seen the sheriff? Oh my gosh.
Hey, what are you doing?
Get a good peek, city boy.
So for trespassing, he gets another $2,000 in fines. But we have to mention his biggest crime, and that is the destruction of property of an entire street and some extra stuff from the town of Radiator Springs. And in case you didn't know, a street is not cheap at all, so he'll have to pay a $50,000 fine. Another crime that McQueen committed when we met him was the mistreatment of his own team. You could say that they are like his workers, which we saw he didn't care at all. And from such dealings they had, they themselves resigned, which would be punished by Lightning McQueen no longer being able to compete in races. Thus, the great Lightning takes a total list of 6 crimes: negligence, assault and battery, reckless driving, trespassing, destruction of property, mistreatment of workers, having to pay a huge fine of $67,500 and spending 2 years in prison, in addition to no longer competing in the Piston Cup races. A considerable sentence for the hero of the movie. But if we talk about the real heroes who have saved entire countries, we have to talk about Mater's track record. Yes, he's an angel of God, but he has also committed his crimes. We have to question his driving skills. Even though he's not a race car, he has a great command of driving backwards, and he didn't question his great skill. I mean, it is a good talent, but it's reckless driving. This can cause a lot of accidents, so I'll fine him $500. Mater is usually bored in Radiator Springs, but he's found a way to have fun in the middle of nowhere, whether it is breaking into neighboring ranches to scare off tractors or going into a train tunnel without his wheels, which may seem innocent, but ultimately he's committed a crime of trespassing. And in the movie he starred in, he even breaks into a mansion full of mobsters, but well, he was on the side of the law at that moment, and yet Mater still gets about $3,000 in fines. Like many other townspeople, Mater has a job, and he rescues cars that are broken down or flat in the middle of nowhere. But Mater tends to be very absent-minded, and one of his clients in Cars 2 practically got dragged by Mater. The poor guy was hitting the ground all the time. There were even sparks flying, like in an episode of the Power Rangers. So here we have two crimes, assault and negligence, because he didn't do his job right. So we'll fine him $5,000. Mater is a connoisseur. He's traveled the world and he's a great friend, but he has one major flaw that has caused problems on more than one occasion. Mater is very rowdy, and we've seen him at parties he's invited to. Which counts as a disorderly conduct crime, and for that he gets a $2,000 fine. So Mater puts together a list of 5 crimes, which surprisingly beats some pretty malevolent villains. We hope Mater never turns bad. Reckless driving, trespassing, assault, negligence, disorderly conduct. Having to pay a total fine of $10,500, which shouldn't be a problem for a royal gentleman with powerful connections. Let's move on to some cars that had a small appearance, but without them, the car story wouldn't exist. I'm talking about the tuned cars from the first movie, which had an enviable flow and seemed to come from Fast and Furious. They appear on the road driving at high speed, and although they seem to be in control of the situation, they were actually disturbing the other cars on the road. So this is a crime of reckless driving, which is quite risky, taking into account that there are 4 of them and they are on the road. So they would be fined $10,000. And that's not their only punishable action. They approach Mac and put him to sleep, knowing that it's a huge truck with a car in its cargo, and they are driving over a bridge. This is what made McQueen jump out of his trailer. But it could have been worse, with Mac exploding into 1,000 pieces and causing fires and explosions on the road. Good thing it's Disney. So, for assault and reckless behavior, they get a $7,000 fine. Besides, we can't forget the post-credit scenes we saw in Cars, when all these tuned cars are driving at full speed through Radiator Springs. Good thing the sheriff found them. And for driving at high speeds, we'll fine them $500. And that's how these nutjobs put together a total list of 4 crimes. Reckless driving, reckless behavior, assault, driving at high speed, for which they would have to pay a total fine of $17,500, money that they surely invested in tuning themselves. But let's go back to the purest and most innocent characters of Cars, and we have Cruz Ramirez, the one who is the perfect combination between McQueen and Mater, being a competitor with a good sense of humor. But is she really capable of committing crimes? We saw her enter to the illegal rally, and even she admits she shouldn't be there, and whether she entered by accident or not, it's a trespassing crime, for which she'll have to pay $500. I wouldn't count the assaults inside the rally, since that's the joke of doing it, and the cars seem to be fine with that. But what I'll count is the crime she commits already by the end of the movie, when she enters the race replacing the Lightning McQueen. The first thing she does is to get behind Jackson Storm, having all the space in the world, and she sticks close to him, even making jokes about his butt and other things that come to her mind. Something I would count as a crime of harassment, for which she'll have to pay $500. That's how Cruz gets home with only 2 crimes: trespassing, harassment. And if she's coming back for another movie, hopefully she'll make the list bigger. For now, she would only have to pay $1,000 in fines, and she's completely free. But if we talk about stalkers, we can't forget Francesco Bernoulli. The fastest car in all of Italy has a flaw: being obsessed with the Lightning McQueen. It's amazing how his goal is not to win the race, but for McQueen to lose, and he takes it too far. He even designs himself a sticker with McQueen's name, and in interviews he only talks about him.
The Lightning McQueen would not have a chance against Francesco. The McQueen. Lightning McQueen.
McQueen?
The Lightning McQueen, huh? McQueen.
Yeah, hi, this is Lightning McQueen.
Ah, Lightning McQueen.
So this is a crime of harassment that deserves a fine of $500 and a restraining order. And Francesco would only take a list with only 3 crimes, because in the end he's a good guy, and he even invites his mom to the races. Harassment, harassment, and harassment. Having to pay a single $500 fine and a possible restraining order. But we all know the biggest burden he has is being the best characters in Cars 2 and being the fastest car in Italy. And then we have Doc Hudson. Yes, in fact, Doc Hudson committed a crime in the Cars movie, and that is when he meets Lightning McQueen. Lightning doesn't want to pave the whole street he destroyed.
I hate it!
So Doc Hudson proposes a race. If McQueen wins, he can go, but if Hudson wins, McQueen has to repave everything he didn't pave right. And in this race is where the crime is committed, because Doc Hudson knew very well that McQueen wasn't going to be able to make a good turn, and in this case McQueen was going to fall on all the cactus, causing him a lot of heavy damage and even a possible death. But Doc Hudson did nothing. He just let McQueen go on and let his accident happen. This we can count as negligence, for which we'll have to give him a $5,000 fine. And how about you? What do you think of these car characters? What other ones would you like to see in the next video?